I got hit by a car and whatever. I got to take Tina Bride. A whole bunch of shit happened. And they gave me, you know how it starts with the Percocets and then the Roxys and this and that. I fell in love. I'm gonna be honest with you, and I'm gonna say it, that there's no better feeling than that feeling when you first try it. It's out of this world. It's something that changed my whole life in a bad way. But still, look, I don't do it to get high. I do it to get straight, to get normal, to be able to function. And it's fucked up.
You don't want to go through withdrawals.
I don't want to go to withdrawal, but when I do the drug, it's not to get high. It's just to be normal.
Many Americans today are struggling with homelessness. Each and every one of those individuals are prone to constant harassment as well as physical and mental abuse. For those with no roof over their head, finding the next meal can be a struggle. Homeless individuals face constant discrimination, which can lead to dangerous consequences that not only affect the individual, but the community as a whole. For many, being homeless is a matter of struggling with socio-economically related challenges, but other negative substances may force individuals to remain homeless. Substance abuse has plagued the homeless community for quite some time. Drugs like heroin, meth, crack, and K2 remain accessible to millions of Americans who can potentially utilize the substance either as a coping mechanism when adapting to dangerous street life or as the very reason someone was forced into homelessness. Addiction forces many to abandon all responsibilities. Prioritizing drug use becomes a never-ending quest to get high that will inevitably die down over time, forcing an individual to hunt for the next dose. Additionally, many Americans who are struggling with homelessness also deal with mental issues. This is due to a number of reasons ranging from physical, sexual, and mental abuse, as well as stress, social isolation, and other factors. Researchers concur that there is an issue with the current system that yields very minimal success. Thousands of individuals enter this failing cycle on a daily basis, leaving many to struggle on their own. Is there a remedy? Is there a solution?
Homelessness has been a big problem in this country for a very long time. I think there's a lot of indications that it's getting worse in some ways. It's hard to accurately say how many total people are experiencing homelessness in the US just because it depends, first of all, on how we define homelessness. So are we talking about people that are sleeping outdoors or in tents or in cars? Are we talking about people in shelters? Are we including transitional housing? Are we including people that are couch surfing or doubled up? So they might not be literally on the street, but who don't really have a stable place to call their own. I personally would include all of those as types of homelessness. But because there are these different definitions and because it's hard to know or to count, how many people are in those situations, it's hard to say like exactly how many people are experiencing homelessness, but I think we can say with certainty that it's a very big problem in the US. It affects a lot of people. People often think of adults, but it's also children and families and young people that experience homelessness. So it really affects people from all walks of life. There's been some kind of renewed attention on homelessness during the COVID-19 pandemic, but I would say that it's certainly been a big problem before COVID, and even after, this COVID-19 crisis is over, homelessness will, I think, continue to be a huge problem unless we can really change our policy and do things differently.
One of the things about traveling across the country as much as I'd been doing before COVID was just everywhere you go, there is mass homelessness. Anything that we do that might be slightly, let's say, problematic or disorderly behavior, we mostly do in the privacy of our home. But for a homeless person, that happens on the streets. If they have an argument, if they have too much to drink, if they're maybe having a bad mental health day, all of a sudden what would normally be thought of more as a private concern becomes a public concern. And of course, that means that then they're subjected to policing because we don't really have any alternative infrastructures in place to help these folks manage their daily lives in ways that don't have such a deep impact on the rest of us. It's complicated, right? There are many people who volunteer in soup kitchens and give money to organizations to try to help people. There are many more who are sympathetic to the fact that homeless folks are being caught in a situation that's not of their own making. There are many people, unfortunately, who feel like, well, I pay a lot of money for a place to live, and now this person is making my street, my park, whatever, less pleasant, less usable, less valuable. And so I want that problem removed. And whatever, I would prefer you do it in a more humane fashion, but if that doesn't work, do what you got to do.
I think there's a tremendous amount of risks and stressors and ways in which people's safety is threatened on a day-to-day basis. So again, this will depend on like a person's particular housing situation, if they're on the street versus in a shelter versus, couch surfing and staying in the homes of acquaintances. But all of those situations have different risks. When you don't have, a safe place to call your own, there's lots of incidences of different kinds of violence and assault against homeless people. So that's one concern. I think there's just a lot of stress on a day-to-day basis of, not being able to have your own private place to return to. It's hard for people to get enough to eat and to get healthy food if they're homeless. If people have different types of health conditions, it's kind of hard to manage those conditions. It's hard, for example, to take medication or even keep track of that without a place that you can safely store your medication. So there's just really a lot of, potential risks on a day-to-day basis. And that's not to mention the risk of like the environment itself. So if it's extreme temperatures, if it's really hot, if it's really cold out, if it's an air quality issue like we've had on the West Coast with the fires, people that don't have a home to buffer them from those elements are clearly at much greater risk from these different environmental exposures as well.
Hey, God bless you. Have a good day, all right? There's people that laugh. There's people that, you get what I'm saying? They say, "Yo, I ridicule you," but I don't give a fuck. That's the thing about it. All I'm doing is walking up and saying, "Hi, how you doing? God bless." That's it. And I make motherfucking enough money to fucking survive.
That's how we gonna do. That's all we ever do.
I was hanging out with my uncle, right? And he was smoking crack, so I started smoking crack. Stealing and wasting money and all this other bad stuff, right?
Walk around. I can try to stay on solid ground. Hey. And it's my friend do too. So we will never catch her off of solid ground.
So then I got robbed, right, by this girl, and she showed me the dope spot, which is in Hoboken, right? I can tell you the exact location too if you want, but I don't want to rat nobody out.
Heroin, crack.
Well, I know heroin used to be crazy back then, but I don't know what's going on now. What are they doing now? Like, what's the popular drug on the street right now?
Popular on the street is water.
That's that, yeah. How does it feel though?
I just feel like, man, you about to be like, you.
I started doing heroin right every day. I did 4 bags today, but I need more. Please, help me out, man.
I feel like what?
Jesus.
Like Jesus Christ?
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's why you walk on water, right? That's why they walk on water, right? I feel like up there.
Wa alaikum salam, rahmatullah.
Salam.
This is a sign. If you look very closely at it, Munchies is spelled wrong. Munchies is spelled M-U-N-C-H-I-E-S.
I'm not trying to be a drug addict, but I have pain, and I'm weak, and I'm retarded. I collect the Social Security check, and I waste it on drugs. I don't even pay my mother rent.
When you're high, when you write a sign, you spell moochies.
Or Japanese otaku.
If you take
you're an otaku and you like Japanese
One way I'm doing the video shoot.
Huh?
They're working around doing the video shoot.
Yeah, documentary. You have to pick up off the ground to save your money for food. Actually, that's we thank God, not K2. I wonder if this glow in the dark. Oh my God!
And that's how unfortunately they see us. You know, we're not little kids. You know, you can tell us what to do, but you know what? Honestly, we're adults. You have to act like an adult. It's up to you whether you get out of the system or not.
Yo, I would put this on pop, bro. If I was the blood, I might be corrupt. Might be something like that. I put this on Gilly the Kid. Hey yo, this shit. This shit.
It's gonna rain hard.
Yo, yeah, it's gonna rain like 9 o'clock.
Fuck my food.
Don't worry, bro. We got you some. I got you something else.
Don't worry, Poppy. Don't worry.
Yeah, we'll get you something else, bro. Don't worry.
No, Poppy, you good. You good. I'll get some.
The struggle they been through, man, it was sad too, because I was like looking at it like that, and I was like, yo, nah, man, nah, bro. You know what I'm saying? When they say, you know, they out the struggle. You know what I'm saying? They out the struggle.
I think this is a big issue, and of course, you know, there's variation in how people view homelessness. So I don't think we can say, you know, that all of society views homelessness a certain way. But overall, I think there's a big problem with the way that homeless people are stigmatized in society. So there's a lot of negative stereotypes about homelessness. I think a lot of people assume homelessness is due primarily to people being lazy, or there's a stereotype that every homeless person has like a mental health problem or a substance use problem or both, and an assumption that that's the reason why they became homeless. So I think there's a lot of misunderstanding and a lot of negative stereotyping around homelessness, even to the point of dehumanization. So sometimes the way I see homelessness talked about in the media or in other discussions, it's almost done in a way that doesn't even recognize that homeless people are human beings. So I think that is a widespread and a big problem in the United States. Of course, not every homeless person is, you know, using or misusing substances or anything like that. But traumatic incidents and different types of violence and abuse, which might happen before somebody becomes homeless, it may happen after they're homeless, it may happen, you know, in both ways. And yeah, it is common for a lot of people, not just homeless people, who might be using substances as part of their coping with traumatic events. So it doesn't apply to everyone, but yes, I think that is, you know, a common coping mechanism, both to deal with specific traumas and to deal with just the day-to-day difficulties and stressors that come with living on the street and being homeless.
So the decision as a matter of public policy to approach America's drug problem through mass criminalization actually makes the lives of drug-involved people worse. It forces them to spend huge amount of money on prohibited drugs, which causes the price to go up. It means they don't have good access to treatment services when they're interested and ready and able to take advantage of them. That we have very limited public health interventions to help people not develop secondary infections, you know, overdose, things like that, all of which can contribute to making it harder for them to stabilize their lives. So these two things are kind of related, right? We've turned social problems into problems of moral failure that will only respond to criminalization. So it's like a double burden. They're harassed for being homeless, they're harassed for being drug involved, and the approach is never, let's actually house someone, deal with the traumas that are driving their harmful behavior, and provide them support. And we'd rather spend more money criminalizing them, wagging our finger at them, than it would take to actually just solve the problem.
I think it's hard to say, but I think generally police are not really trained or well qualified to provide the kind of services or interactions that a homeless person might need. And I think when those type of things happen that you're describing, it's, most people just want that person, the homeless person, to not be there in their store, in their neighborhood, in their community. They're not often thinking about, what kind of help long-term does this person need? What has this person been through that might explain why they're acting this way? I think the mentality is just like, we're afraid of this person, or we're uncomfortable around this. We want the person gone. We don't really care what happens to them. We just want them gone quickly. And so, yeah, police are, I think, often called to do that. And I think it's unfortunate. I think a lot of homeless people have had very negative and traumatic encounters with police. It doesn't really do much to solve the problem if it's just police arresting somebody or temporarily, making them leave that area without connecting them to services. So I don't think, police can really get at the root of homelessness, and to rely on that as a solution is not like a solution at all.
We're just trying to save lives, brother.
That's veteran Lowell police officer Kevin Garneau. Boston 25 News did a ride-along with Garneau back in October 2016. He's part of the city's outreach program geared towards providing assistance for homeless people and those with substance abuse issues. The 49-year-old now finds himself on the other side of the law, indicted on rape charges. A 16-year-old homeless girl told investigators that Garneau went to her tent and told her there were warrants out for her arrest, and said he would not arrest her in exchange for sexual favors.
Talk to me about him. Good guy?
He's not a bad guy. No, not a bad guy at all. Always came by, check on me. I've been out here for like a couple years.
Who they say used excessive force to remove an innocent man from the subway.
You're holding up the train for everybody. Step off or I gotta drag you off.
The police department tells us their officers used force against Troiano because he attempted to strike one of the officers and resisted arrest.
Get off of me. Just step off of me.
The video shows police throwing the 30-year-old former hairdresser off the train, macing him. Troiano's attorney says it also shows police choking him. According to the criminal complaint, Troiano was charged with a misdemeanor resisting arrest charge and with second-degree assault, a felony, stating that the defendant kicked one officer's right hand, injuring him.
Police started to move into Cal Anderson Park around 7:30 this morning. Later on, we caught this video of a man running from police just before he was arrested. Police showed up ordering campers to disperse and were met with some resistance. Police say at least 10 arrests were made for various reasons, charges including felony harassment, trespassing, and failure to disperse.
Authorities say the pair of Fullerton police officers repeatedly beat and tased 37-year-old Kelly Thomas after arresting him at a city bus depot. The incident happened back in July.
Chased him 6 times. Few cops all the cops came and they outside him, and he's just like, please God, please Dad. They killed him.
Sir, drop the knife! Drop the knife! Sir, drop the knife! Drop the knife! Sir, drop the knife! Drop the knife! Drop.
En la calle me llaman el jefe. Yo soy de Miami. Vine a la ciudad hace 5 años. Mi gente de Miami tiene gente aquí, ya. Hacemos negocio. ¿Sabes? Estos negocios ha sido mi vida. Desde niño chiquito yo estoy viendo la familia, vivía, mi tío, mi primo, todo, haciendo lo suyo. Que hay dinero en la calle. Y solo hay dinero para hacer, Yo voy a la discoteca, tengo a mi amigo, conoce la gente, todo el mundo, Ese tipo inteligente como él habla, man. Él tiene, ¿cómo se dice? His way with the people. La gente está adictada a esta mierda. ¿Y qué voy a decir que no? No, claro que lo voy a vender. Hay dinero, ¿no? ¿Qué quieres? Molly, ecstasy, tusi. Lo que tú quieras, lo tenía. Tenía acceso a eso y mi vida que se atrayó a eso, Yo lo hago por dinero, nada más. A mí no me importa lo que hagas, tú me pides y te lo doy. Pero si tenía otra oportunidad, yo tenía otra vida. La cosa que yo veo, la experiencia que yo he pasado, no lo deseo a nadie. Es una vida miserable, yo no tengo amigos. Todos los amigos que tengo son falsos. ¿Sabes? Yo me voy a morir solo, pero con dinero. Todos los días estoy afuera, no tengo familia, no tengo amigos. Perdón.
When someone is incarcerated, when someone is convicted of a crime, that closes down job opportunities. It closes down the ability to make money. And when you have areas like that blocked off, then sometimes even if you have a defendant who gets out of jail and wants to live a law-abiding life, if they can't get a job and they can't make ends meet and all legitimate avenues of financial success are closed, then history has shown that it leads to many people committing crimes again because their re-entry into society from being incarcerated is cruel to them. It doesn't allow them to restart their life. So yes, I think that that's definitely something that we've learned. And I think we've also learned that incarceration generally, leads to greater recidivism. It doesn't prove to lower someone's propensity to commit crime. If anything, it has the adverse effect. It's a real problem.
Basically, making moves by myself all day. I don't be fucking with niggas like that. Niggas get weird. Niggas get jealous over money moves. Niggas get, a little too greedy, a little too hungry. And that's the problem with the hood. Everybody always trying to get out. It's like the melting pot in the city. And when everybody trying to get out, it's like someone's drowning and you're trying to save them. And they just keep trying to kick you so that they can get out. So that's why I just separate myself. tell me all the time, oh, why don't you get a job? Why don't you go make that paper, you know? And I start laughing because when they tell me how much they're making, oh, I'm making 15 an hour, oh, I'm making 17 an hour, oh, I'm making 20 an hour. And they're all feeling like big shots. And I make what they make within like 1 fucking millionth of a second. Obviously I'm over exaggerating, but in one day I'll make $1,000 and they work a week for that. So why the hell would I go do that? And of course everything goes with risk. But life is a risk, if you really think about it. Hold up. That's my custody right there. Like I was saying, right now, for example, how long was I out for? What? A minute? 2 minutes? That's $60 right there. And how long did a nigga have to work for that? What, 4 hours? 5 hours? I don't know. After you live this type of lifestyle, after you touch this type of money, you can't just live a normal life. I can't just go work, have a boss, be a slave.
We had police officers that would go into the field, and if there was a specific area that they were concerned that there was a lot of drug transactions happening in that area, sometimes some officers would go undercover and act as drug buyer and try to purchase drugs in a particular location. And they would have, maybe through confidential informants or from other observations that the officers made, they would get some intel, or they would just know from speaking to people on the streets that certain corners, certain areas were areas that many drug transactions took place. So they would do what we call a buy and bust operation, where an officer would act undercover and try to buy drugs from someone on the street. And when the officer would do that, he would be wired with an audio device so that officers that would be seated in a location close by, usually within a block away, would listen to the transaction, and then once the transaction was made, they would move in and arrest or attempt to arrest the drug seller, the drug dealer.
So you said, do I have a conscience? Do I feel bad for giving people what I give them? Honestly, there are times where I do feel bad. When, for example, I see a woman that I'm serving something to that I know has kids at home, that I know has responsibilities, but she's out here in the streets getting fucked up. Or a father that, instead of spending his money on his child support or buying his kids some new toys, is trying to get zanned out, trying to get perked out. Of course I feel a little bad, I have a little soft spot, but my business thrives off of addiction. And the only way I'm gonna make money is if they keep needing it and they keep wanting it. So I guess in a way I contradict myself. But then again, what are morals? Who sets the standards for it? Why can the pharmaceutical company do it? And do it legally? And extort people legally? And get people addicted legally? and I can't reap the benefits too? I don't know.
So I worked with many police officers that dealt with these buy and bust operations. I did a lot of work we knew exactly what the hot spots were, where these interactions took place. And I worked with the officers who went undercover to try to identify the sellers and even some of the buyers of these drugs, and to make arrests to close things down. You know, from these experiences, I saw that there were certain areas that tended to have a lot more activity, drug activity, than others. There are certain areas that drug dealers target because they feel like they could have better business there, depending on what the drug is. You know, if you're dealing with crack cocaine, which was a lot of the cases that I dealt with, which crack is cheaper and easier to obtain than pure cocaine or than some of the other drugs. A lot of times they targeted areas that were socioeconomically challenged, and they targeted, people who had a difficult time making ends meet as is. Some of those people were unfortunately homeless. You know, there was a mix of who was targeted, but certain areas tended to be the focus of more activity and more targeted business activity by drug dealers.
So back in the day, man, you already know usually people started off with selling weed and stuff. I was one of the niggas to just move straight up to the crack. Cause that's what they were selling on that corner. There was nothing but fiends coming through. Weed was mostly just to smoke. Nobody really thought weed was a big money maker back then. Nowadays, it's all about the coke and the dope. You feel me? And when I do sell weed, it's gonna be a hefty price. It's gonna be that top shelf, that $400 weed, $400 ounce rapper weed, you feel me? But that white man, that's what really changed the game. And so another reason why I left the crack game, another reason why I left the crack game for the coke game, is because the custodies. So a coke custody, well, if you go to the hood and you sell dime bags or whatever, coke, obviously you're gonna get some dirty clientele. But if you go to the club scenes, the bar scenes, it's just a bunch of white people that live a normal life, a bunch of civilians that just want to unwind, let loose in the weekend. And they're drunk, they're fucked up, so they don't even know what they're doing. They give me their money, I give them their product, they go on with their night. On the block though, when you're selling crack, when you're selling pills, when you're selling anything, and you do it on the corner in the hood, you're gonna have some crazy fiends coming through. And when they don't got money, they'll do you dirty. They'll try to rob you, they'll try to attack you, they'll try to tell on you, they'll try to get the law on you, whatever. So they could have either $1 or a hit. And so that grimy type of corner hustling is just for new youngins coming up that are hungry. But if you're really in the game, you really know what you're doing, you're going to the city. Everybody say they got the best shit. I say I got the best shit. He says he got the best shit. He says he got the best shit. But at the end of the day, when you in the city, when you in the club scene, everybody mixing this shit. And by the time one of us mix it, it's probably been mixed 3 or 4 times. And even if I get something pure, something that's only been mixed once or twice, I'm still gonna mix that bitch maybe 4 or 5 more times, and I don't care. Why? Because these motherfuckers are fucked up. They're drunk. and they got money and they're trying to spend it. And so by the time I serve it to them and I leave, they're already fucked up. They either feel it, think they feel it like it's a placebo or whatever. Sometimes if I don't have the product, I'm gonna get some lactose. I'm gonna chop it up. I'm gonna mix it up. I'm gonna give them a 0.3 of Coke and then a 0.7 of fucking lactose and just call it a gram. And they're gonna get that little buzz, but they're not gonna get fucked up. And they're gonna come back and they're gonna get more. And by the end of the night, I'm gonna be out, cashed out. Well, it's weird. See, I guess I'm a outlaw, whatever you guys, call it, criminal, convict, nuisance to society. But I believe that the cops, they're just doing their job and shit. If you're a civilian and you associate with the police, it's whatever. That's what they're there for. But if you in the game, if you're doing anything illegal, if you're doing anything that you know would get you in trouble, and you go and you talk to them boys, obviously, I don't have a liking towards that. I don't fuck with that. Me personally, a cop is just somebody in a costume. I'm a man like he's a man. We both human. And if it come down to it, if it's either him or me, it's gonna be me.
Sometimes there are confidential informants that are not police officers, but that give information to police officers confidentially about drug activity that they know is going on. Sometimes people call in, either suspected drug activity into 911, or they walk into police precincts and they complain about drug activity going on in a particular location. So there are varied ways that this could be, discovered. Sometimes if you have victims or families of victims of drug overdoses or getting sick or addicted to drugs, they may call into the police to discuss concerns about where the victim is getting the drugs. So there are lots of different avenues that would alert the police to it.
One time my friend found me in his bed, I wasn't moving or anything, and then other times my mom just called the paramedics saying I was too out of it. Like, I think I only overdosed once, was one overdose, but the other ones was just my mom worrying about me too much, so that she just called the ambulance. And then I'd go to the hospital, I'd drink the charcoal and everything, which really sucks. And I'd have to sit there and go into a psych ward because they thought I was suicidal, trying to kill myself. But then I'd get released after 72 hours because they'd realize I wasn't suicidal, I was just trying to get high.
Legalization, which is what we see mostly with marijuana in the US, legalization is about creating a system of legally regulated distribution, and it remains criminal to obtain marijuana outside of that legally regulated system. Decriminalization means that the drugs come entirely from illegal sources, but we don't arrest people for low-level possession. We treat it as a public health problem. So in Portugal, they've decriminalized possession and low-level distribution of drugs, street-level sales and stuff. And the results have been very positive, as you mentioned. Crime has not gone up, overdoses have gone down, infectious disease transmission has gone down, and civilization did not collapse. It's okay, we can do this. So I think we should all watch what's happening in Oregon very carefully. It will take time to see how it works, but I think we need some system that's a mix of legalization and decriminalization for all drugs, and I think it will significantly reduce prison populations, and it will also produce better public health outcomes.
or a place I would start at least would be fund, more long-term permanent supportive housing. As I mentioned, there's a lot of people that need permanent supportive housing and we don't have a big enough supply of it. So I would increase access to that. And I also would do a lot to try to prevent homelessness. And there's a lot of people that are at risk of homelessness primarily just due to economic issues and to how expensive housing is. And that's a problem that has been getting worse over time in this country. You can be working a full-time job and still not be able to afford your housing, because in a lot of cities, what people are paid, wages have not really kept pace with the cost of housing. So that means that every year, housing just becomes more unaffordable for more people. So I think we could do a lot to prevent homelessness in the first place, either by making sure that people get paid more. So we either have to do something about income, or we need to do something about the cost of housing. We need to subsidize it better, or we could do both. And I think we just have not really invested in that as a country. So that's the other thing I would do, is try to have more rental assistance available, or see what we could do to increase people's wages and also increase disability benefits, which is a big part of this too. A lot of people can't work due to different kinds of disabilities, and we, as a government, we recognize that, and people can apply and receive disability benefits, but the amount of those benefits is not enough, again, to really live on or to afford housing. So I think we need to look at all of those pieces of rental assistance, income, wages, disability, and do more to make sure housing is affordable and give people more of a safety net.
Doing a little, you feel me? Gotcha. See how it is? That's what I love about North. People out here, real gonna recognize real. If you're good energy, look, I just say, hey, God bless you. And even if they don't give you money, just a simple respect, that person, remember, a person might not remember what you done for them, what this and that, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. Every human you encounter, it's not what you, it's how you made them feel. Me saying God bless you to somebody ain't no bad energy. You get me? Ain't nothing like that. So I'm not gonna walk up, tell people lies. First of all, you never insult another man's intelligence. You say the fucking truth. Hey, what's good with y'all boys, man? Hey, God bless you, Bob. I don't want no K2, bro. Nah. I don't smoke that K2, Papa. I smoke that real loud, bro. Alright, let's smoke that loud pack right there.